So those are all the presentations we have. Unfortunately, we have to be finished by 1 o'clock because we're using this stage for the AGM. So I don't know if we have time for a question, maybe two. I would encourage you to, if you have more questions, to find the presenter and they might answer your question. But as far as the stage and the tech goes, we'll need to be done by 1. My colleague Naomi has some mics, so if you have a question, maybe put up your hand and we'll get you a microphone and see if we can get that answer for you. And if there are no questions, then thank you very much. And yeah, Dr.
Those were all absolutely fascinating. Thank you so much, Professor Marie-Claire Cordonnier-Segar. I'm not going to leave you with no questions, otherwise you'll think we were just on holiday. But I'll just pick one for our colleague who made this amazing presentation about gender in the media. How much do you think, in terms of the barriers, speaking as somebody who spent a while not allowed to talk to the media at all when I was working at the UN, it wasn't my role. We had spokespeople. They were women as well as men, thank goodness. And then was allowed to talk to the media, indeed encouraged, and they would phone just when I was trying to get food on the table for the kids. And they'd want me to put everything aside and give them a quote. And then they found it strange that I wasn't so eager, you know, as they could hear my son crying in the background. And so I'm just wondering, what do you think the barriers might be beyond the political and the sort of social and the professional?
Stand here. So, excellent question. So, in the process of talking to people about this, and Informed Opinions has been doing this training work for doing media workshops for women in particular, but for anyone who wants to sign up. We have heard lots of barriers. One of them is women feel that they're too busy, that, you know, they have many other things going on. Perhaps reporters don't respect boundaries, but we also feel like we have very strict boundaries. The other thing we've heard is the harassment that can ensue if you are an opinionated woman in public. And Informed Opinions has also a campaign with some tools for protecting against that. But I think it takes a lot, and it takes for instance, universities and communications departments at universities to put forward more names than the usual people who appear in the media, and perhaps give you a break if at dinner time, and sort of set some boundaries. Yeah. Good question.
We have time for maybe one more question. I see a hand over here.
Thanks for a tremendous set of talks, Amita. I really appreciate what you just said, because actually in my last faculty council, sorry, I'm from the Sam Fraser University as well, but in my last faculty council, we had a couple of women who have been very prominent in the media around COVID and public health measures, some in the Faculty of Health Sciences, and are really struggling with institutional support for the amount of vitriol that they receive by putting themselves out there on social media. So I'd love to connect with you on that further, but that's not my question. So my question is actually around computational linguistics and AI. And what you walked us through was just so fascinating. I'm not obviously a linguist, but I wanted to understand where we're at with artificial intelligence, with that importation of meaning. Because what you were really walking us through was not a simple construction of language and syntax, but the embedded meaning within that construction. And I'm just really interested in how, with AI, advancing and supposedly being the be-all and end-all, and I think getting us all out of jobs was another talk in the previous session. But just where we're at in terms of embedding that deeper understanding of meaning in our linguistic interpretation and computational linguistics.
Thanks very much. The biggest roadblock is the lack of good annotated data. Right now, they just turn these machines loose on vast amounts of raw data, But if we can feed them, see, what I showed was just one particular reverse repetition. But everybody in the audience saw that there were lots more things going on in there than just those 2 repetitions. And when the way figures work is in terms of conspiracies or collocations. And if we can get the data, and my project is working on building a database that we can use to build machine learning training sets. If we can get the data annotated for these conspiracies of figures, we can find out what they mean. And there's been some good work, in particular, Marie de Bremet's a computational linguist, did a lot of work in detecting chiasmus, that is, detecting antimetaboly. Chiasmus is a kind of plesinym for it. And what she did was, without realizing it, search for a lot of the conspiracy of figures around it. So if you just search for simple lexical repetition, you end up with a lot of things that don't pattern in terms of meaning very well. And she was looking for things that resembled all for one, one for all, the kind of classical antimetaboly chiastic. And what she did was start to weight her detection algorithms for things like the presence of syntactic repetition. That's a figure called Parizon. Look for things like n-gram similarity, which is a number of words that are similar to one another in the 2 sections. And that correlates highly with things like the you can at the beginning of clauses and the take that's in the middle of clauses. So she actually did a lot of work in this kind of area, but she thought she was only looking for chiasmus alone. And we need to annotate the data to be able to look for these things together, look for syntactic parallelism and so forth alongside them. Thanks. Excellent question.
Great. Thank you all. Unfortunately, we have to cut the questions there because we do need to set up for the AGM. But we hope you'll consider joining us. The AGM will be in this room at 1:30. And then later this afternoon at 2:30 on this floor, there'll be 3 concurrent sessions exploring the RSC's new strategic plan and ways that we are actualizing them. And then the gala this evening in the Tele Center next door. Thank you very much.